I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this.
Hey guys, welcome to another huge episode of Triggered. I hope you're all having an awesome start to the week and that everyone had an awesome weekend, frankly. Great show today. Big news down in Colombia in the presidential race there, because Latin America keeps shifting right. It's almost like, you know, you take away the billions that USAID was fraudulently conveying to the leftists over there, and it's like, you know, people of faith who just want what's best for their family, all these things, they just seem to be voting right all of a sudden. It's amazing how that happens. Senator Bernie Moreno was on the ground there yesterday, and he's going to join us live. Bernie Moreno, great friend of the show, born over there. He understands what it's like. He's lived that American dream. Awesome guy. So you're going to want to see this. Make sure you guys are liking, sharing, and subscribing, okay? Just hit that little like button right now. When we're done or when you're tuning out, share it with your friends. Subscribe so you never miss one of these major episodes. If you do miss the show here on Rumble, go over to Apple, Spotify podcasts, catch it there. If you have friends that get their podcast that way, make sure that they are aware of it, okay? So you got to share the wealth out there. Get it out there. You guys are that front line of defense. For all of the top headlines that we cover on the show, go over to my news app, MXM News, where you can get the mainstream news without the mainstream bias. And of course, guys, don't forget about our brave sponsors for having the guts to support this program. Okay? America's 250th birthday is just weeks away, and it's a perfect time to experience our history for yourself. From Gettysburg to Independence Hall, from presidential homes to national battlefields, the Heritage Guide to Historic Sites helps families explore America's most important places with confidence. The guide helps you fight back against the rewriting of America's past, which you've definitely seen a lot of, and your kids are probably being indoctrinated with in school. So you can visit America's historic sites without the left-wing manipulation that often clouds the reality and the truth behind all of it. The Heritage Guides to Historic Sites gives families a clear path to the real story of America. To learn more, go to heritage.org/Don Jr. That's heritage.org/DONJR and check it out. Also, don't forget about our friends over at Goldco, where you can take the steps to plan for the future. Like I always say, guys, educate yourselves, okay? And learn how you can convert an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold. And do it with the folks at Goldco, who have helped thousands of Americans do the same. To learn more, just go to donjrgold.com. Again, that's DONJR gold.com. Now, before we get to Bernie, let's get into the top headlines of the week. And we'll start with a quick overview of Colombia, because the wind is blowing to the right in the Western Hemisphere, okay? Colombia held its presidential runoff, and the winner is a guy named Abelardo de la Espriella. I'm going to screw up that name, okay? I apologize. His nickname, El Tigre. That's a little bit easier, okay? He's a lawyer, an outsider, and a loud, proud supporter of your favorite president, Donald Trump. He ran on closing the border, backing the cops, and burning down the narco-corruption that's been strangling that country for decades. He beat a hard-left Marxist senator. The candidate the outgoing socialist government was desperate to install, okay? Here was the scene in Colombia this weekend. Now think about that contrast for a second. For years, USAID money poured into left-wing movements in Latin America. For a while, it looked like the future belonged to the Petros and the Maduros and the Marxists of the world. And one by one, that house of cards is crashing down magically when Those billions of your dollars that certainly probably weren't intended to be funding radical leftists went away. Maduro's behind bars, Venezuela's authorities are cooperating with us, and the country that sits right at the center of the cocaine trade just elected a guy who's campaigned on destroying the cartels. That's not an accident. That's what happens when America leads from the front instead of apologizing from the back. The neighborhood notices. Strength is contagious, guys. And that brings me to the question nobody on the left wants asked out loud. Who exactly was paying for the other side? For years, Colombia was one of the single biggest recipients of U.S. foreign aid in the entire hemisphere. Millions of your dollars, probably billions, year after year, pouring in through USAID. It got routed through the NGO machine, the activist machine, and a network of left-wing groups. And as we'll discuss with Senator Moreno, it's no coincidence that the second my father shut USAID down, things start to change. The left lectures the entire planet about dark money and foreign interference in elections, and then we start looking under the hood at USAID and Act Blue and daycare centers, and they're all the ones who are implicated in all of it. The entire left-wing machine is fueled and funded by fraud. Ever wonder why some random left-wing lunatic Senate candidate can outraise their opponent 50-1? I mean, it doesn't seem to make much sense, and yet it's been going on forever, even in conservative districts. And speaking of which, take a look at what's happening up in Maine. Democrats have decided to hitch their wagon to Graham Planter. We've talked about this clown before. This is the candidate who had to go on TV and explain a Nazi tattoo on his body. He had some really creepy online accounts and creepy text messages. Women have come forward to reveal disturbing details about his behavior, including one woman who said that he twisted her arm behind her back and shoved her into a room and held the door shut from the outside. Yeah, seems like a great candidate. I guess they're just going to run with it. Imagine that was a conservative for a second. And on top of all of that, it came out that he'd been sending sexually explicit messages to a whole string of women while he was married. His own wife found them and reported it to the campaign during vetting. So they knew about it during vetting and still did nothing about it. Just, he's a Democrat. You can get away with these sorts of things. So anyway, this is the guy Democrats keep telling us is their new star. But yet, when actually confronted about it, they seem, let's just say, much less enthusiastic. A reporter asked Senator Cory Booker a pretty simple question about where he stands on this, and here's how he responded.
To elect a new leader is in Maine. We have a competitive contest. Democrats just nominated Graham Plattner. Despite past offensive comments about a tattoo past offensive comments, he's got this tattoo that's associated with a Nazi symbol. He also said he didn't understand its meaning. He's covered it up. And he's also faced allegations from former girlfriends of abusive behavior, which he denies. Do you think Graham Plattner has the character to serve in the United States Senate?
Well, this is what campaigns are for. He certainly has a lot of issues and a lot of questions to answer and address. And I think the people of Maine are going to give a lot of examination to this going through in this election. For me, I certainly hope we pick up a seat here. For me and people of the state of New Jersey, dear God, we need to get the Senate back so we can start checking this out-of-control president. And that's why, again, I'm going to be doing everything I can all over my state of New Jersey and everywhere I can to help candidates across this country to get to that end, which is Democrats regaining control of the House and the Senate so we can check and balance a president that's chaotic, cruel, and corrupt.
Well, you mentioned Texas and Ohio. Will you campaign in Maine?
I don't have any plans to campaign there now.
So let me get this right. Yeah, I have concerns, but, we need that seat. The people who spent, better part of a decade calling everyone they disagree with a Nazi, we need the seat. So maybe we can elect, a Nazi. I mean, of course. Because notice what he did not say, guys. He didn't say this man should not be a United States Senator. He couldn't bring himself to do it. And why not? Because the seat matters more than the standards. The math matters more than morals. They will hold their nose and they'll run a guy with Nazi tattoos, a slew of women who've alleged he did all sorts of vile stuff too, et cetera, as long as it gets them one vote closer to power. That's not a party with values. That's a party who just wants power in perpetuity. These are the same people, remember, who will call you a monster, a threat to democracy itself for wanting, secure borders or a fair hiring process, being able to get your kids into schools based on merit, those kinds of really terrible fascist things. And they can't answer one reporter's question, not one, about the actual creep on their own ticket. They've got nothing. And speaking of having nothing to say, but somehow taking a very long time to say it, let's talk about Kamala Harris, because she's back, I guess. She sat down with Don Lemon, and Don lobbed her the easiest, fluffiest question you can imagine. Basically, a question about hope. And what came out? Well, just listen for yourself.
We believe this. We each have light inside of us. And we need to know that that is what inspires our hope as much as anything external to ourselves. And when we feel that and not allow an election or an individual to dampen that light, and instead let that light kind of carry us, in particular through moments of darkness, that we not only act on that hope, but we inspire that hope in each other. And in particular at this moment, it is so important that we not only have hope, but that we understand that that should be a...
Hope should be a verb. Huh? Really? It should be. It is a verb. It is a verb, Kamala. Man, it's really hard to imagine someone dumber than her. Imagine that, she could have been president of the United States. Hope should be a verb. Well, minor details. Each of us have a light inside of us. I mean, again, that was the classic Kamala Harris word salad. It could have been an easy home run question. And instead, she just butchered the hell out of it. I mean, what are we even doing here? And by the way, the word hope, again, it's a verb. How does she not know that? I'm surprised she knows what a verb is if she doesn't know that hope is a verb. It's like one of the most basic verbs. It's been a verb the whole time. Words can be nouns and verbs. This isn't some revolutionary critique of the English language. And look, this would just be funny. Except in that same sit-down, she also confirmed that she's thinking about running for president again in 2028. Please, God, do it. So this is somebody who sees themselves as a thought leader, telling you the deep insights she's bringing to the table. And that's that hope should be a verb. The bigger point here, though, guys, is that Democrats cannot give you a straight answer about anything, about who funded them, about their own candidates, and they can't give you a straight answer even when you toss them a beach ball of a question. It's all a fog. It's all, vibes and weird circular nonsense, because the second they say something concrete, you can hold them to it. So they don't, because they don't want to be held to anything. And their ideas are terrible anyway. And they never, ever want to be held to anything. But Team Trump is doing just the opposite and getting things done, especially on fraud. Earlier today, the Fraud Task Force and the FBI brought to justice a fraudster who authorities say was the kingpin behind one of the biggest Medicare scams in history. $3.7 billion, B with a B, $3.7 billion. The suspect was apprehended overseas in coordination with our key partners in Turkey and will now face justice here in the United States. And it's as clear as ever, any criminal actor who steals from the American taxpayer will be caught, no matter where they try to hide. Here to react to this and so much more, my good friend, great friend of the show, Ohio Senator Bernie Moreno. Bernie, what's going on, buddy? How you doing?
Well, I was hoping we'd get to a lot of issues now that it's a verb again.
I know. I mean, we got to restructure the entire English language apparently on this show, or at least clarify it. So, that feels like a big one, but, a lot to talk about, Senator. I mean, you were on the ground in Colombia yesterday. You were obviously born there. What did you actually see at the polls? What message did Colombia send yesterday? Because this is one of those that, we've been talking about for a while. And, man, if you lost Colombia or kept losing it, That was a pretty scary thought, given sort of the right-wing wave that you've seen go across all of Latin America.
No, absolutely. So let me give you the tale of good news and bad news. On the good news side, President Trump endorsed the Tiger, Abelardo, won decisively, a record voter turnout. Over 26 million people voted in the election. There's a guy who, let me just explain his policy towards the United States. The answer is yes. What's the question? He will be the greatest ally America has ever had in the Western Hemisphere. So that's really good news. I can also tell you to what you mentioned in your show, because I saw it with my own eyes. The U.S. Embassy compound is massive in Bogota. There was a huge wing that's now empty. Do you know what used to be in that wing? USAID. In fact, many embassy staffers would talk about how insane it was that they had such an outrageous budget. So it is not a conspiracy theory. It is absolute fact that USAID was funding anti-American socialist candidates throughout the hemisphere.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we've been doing this for a long time. Anyone who's been watching this show, it's not conspiracy theory that the second USAID goes away, it feels like almost every election in Latin America has swung to the right, or at least the right has gained a significant advantage. That can't be coincidence anyway. Just like I don't believe in any coincidence, and those billions of dollars going away. All of a sudden, people get to vote how they actually want, or at least you're not combating the fake propaganda pushed by those lunatics.
No, absolutely. You look at Chile, you look at Paraguay, you look at Bolivia, you look at Ecuador, Peru, now Colombia. You look at Panama, Costa Rica, Honduras, El Salvador, the Dominican Republic, of course, Venezuela is in process. This is a whole new Western Hemisphere. It's going to be probably an odd statement for me to make to you, but your dad will go down as the greatest force in Latin American history. I mean, it's kind of wild because I don't think you or him would ever imagine, hey, I'm going to run for president of the United States to make the most significant improvement in Latin America. But it's absolutely true. It's no hyperbole. He is the most popular elected official on earth in Latin America. That's how strong a support there is there. So it's really shout out to this new Trump doctrine in the Western Hemisphere that's going to make this country safer and more secure. We're getting rid of China. We're getting rid of Iran. We're getting rid of Russia. We're getting rid of China and their influence, these transnational criminal organizations. Next up is Mexico and Brazil.
Yeah, I mean, those are all big ones. And the fact that, there's been, I guess there has been U.S. government focus on Latin America. It's just been dominated by the leftists at USAID. I mean, they were pushing the socialism. They were pushing the insanity. They were pushing transgenderism to people who, if you explained it to them rationally, would, laugh in your face. You and I have traveled to much of that part of the world, and you try to have these conversations. I've done it in Africa, literally trying to explain it to people. They laugh at me like they think I'm kidding. But to actually focus on things that can be beneficial for both of those countries and for our hemisphere, our own backyard, for the first time in decades, that's a huge step.
Yeah, I mean, they brought socialism to literally our front door. That's what the leftists in America wanted, and we've pushed it back. So that's the good news. I mean, an amazing result. The people in Colombia were so happy and so appreciative of America's support. Here's the bad news, Don. Here's what I witnessed in Colombia in terms of an election. These are things that your viewers should know, will shock them to the core, because Democrats have been lying for over a year and a half about the Save America Act. Here's how Colombia, a developing nation with a smaller GDP than Ohio, okay, a country of 50 million people. Here's how they run their elections. Number one, election day is one day. It starts at 8 o'clock in the morning and it ends at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. No exceptions. Number two, you have to have proof of citizenship on your possession in order to enter the hall where you vote. Number three, you must show a voter ID, that same card, before they hand you the ballot. Number three, the ballots are all paper. There's absolutely no mail-in balloting. The ballots are counted by hand. In some polling locations, they have biometrics. So they check your fingerprints and your face ID before you vote. And after you vote, you get fingerprinted in addition to signing the form. But here's the punchline, Don. 1 hour. 1 hour after the election, the polls closed, you had a result. 1 hour. They counted by hand 26 million votes. Today, they audited that. So the judicial system audits that. This many errors. 0 errors. done. The election is done. Compare that and contrast that to California. It's a disgrace, Don, that the wealthiest country in the hemisphere, the wealthiest country on earth, can't run an election anywhere near the level that Colombia runs theirs.
But Bernie, I was told that that was Jim Crow 2.0. I mean, requiring voter ID to make sure that people are actually allowed to vote in the elections that they're voting in. I mean, I was told that's, racist, misogynist, sexist, homophobic, transphobic, basically everything. Like all of the ists, all of the phobics. How is that not Jim Crow 2.0?
Well, evidently, when Hispanics arrive in America, they can't find their ID or aren't able to find a birth certificate. But when they live in their native country of Colombia, they can. Look, Colombia has an Afro-American population. They have an indigenous population. Obviously, the country's Hispanic. They have abject poverty. 99% of the country. And you got to see where some of these people live. I mean, Don, this is, I'm talking about.
Imagine.
This is not
I've been to
rural
Colombia
America.
a few times, but, not in the most destitute areas. But I imagine they still have ID and can still vote and can still figure out how to do that, even in the destitute areas.
Not 99% of the population has this ID card with them. It's it's not even a question. In fact, you'll appreciate this. I sat down with the registrar, the guy who runs this whole thing, and I said, well, what if the person doesn't have their ID on them? And he looked at me and goes, I'm not, there's a little bit of a language. I mean, I'm fluent in Spanish, but sometimes I miss some words. He goes, I think I may have misunderstood you. And I go, well, what happens if they don't have their voter ID? He goes, I still don't understand. Of course they can't vote. Like he couldn't. He didn't
understand your question. It was just, in his mind, it was so asinine that someone wouldn't need voter. In Colombia,
Yes.
that it's that crazy, and yet here in America, you can have the elite of the elite in the Democrat Party being like, why would you need ID to vote? Why on earth? Unless of course you're stealing the votes, which of course they are.
Yeah, and by the way, when I talked to him about mail-in balloting, he looked at me like I was a crazy person. He goes, why would you mail out a ballot to somebody? He goes, that's insane. Do you know how much fraud you would get in that? I said, so at that point...
Actually, yes, we do know. It's still allowed.
And at that point, I made a decision, and I've talked to Rick Scott, Mike Lee, and Ron Johnson about this. We're going to bring in the people who ran the Colombian election. We're going to subpoena Gavin Newsom, and we're going to have a hearing, California versus Colombia. Why can Colombia run an election at that high level, and California is so incompetent? And I think the American people need to see this, Don. We're going to put this right in their faces and say, look, the Save America Act just says, prove you're an American citizen and show who you are when you vote. Yeah. And we can't get 60 out of 100 senators to vote for that. That's a disgrace.
Yeah, I mean, California, probably the tech capital of the world, probably one of the wealthiest places in the world. I mean, even as a state, it's got, by country, it'd be what, the 7th largest GDP in the world. Like, I'm pretty sure if they wanted to solve this problem, if they actually cared and it didn't just inure to the sort of uniparty Democrats in California, they could solve this thing in about 2 minutes. They don't want to. It's not that they're incapable of doing it. It's that they understand what the results would be.
Yeah, I mean, imagine the person in charge of running an election in a developing country that's got a dot of resources compared to the United States. Like I said, their GDP is less than Ohio. And he's looking at me going, what do you mean you don't have to prove you're a citizen to vote? That doesn't even make sense. What do you mean you'd mail on ballots? That causes dramatic levels of fraud. Their number one concern is they want to make certain people have confidence in their elections. And they looked at us and go, if you're describing accurately the way California runs the elections, they would never be able to have stability in their country because nobody in Colombia would trust the results. Think about what those words mean to us here in America. It's embarrassing, Don. It's embarrassing as somebody who was born in Colombia, became a naturalized citizen, to know that this country, the greatest country on earth, has to go back to Colombia to learn how to run something basic like an election to ensure democracy. It's a disgrace. I'm going to talk about this until I'm blue in the face, until we really shame Democrats into realizing that if they don't vote for this, the voters of their states should throw them the heck out of Washington, D.C. Don. This is an 80-20 issue that we should absolutely be able to pass the Save America Act. And that's not including, by the way, adding the prohibition on mail-in balloting, which, again, I want the American public to see this guy from Colombia, South America, explain why he would never consider doing that. Never. And I said to him, well, what about poor people? And he goes, poor people have national IDs. Poor people know how to find their ballot process. Is not an issue. And did I mention record voter turnout. They have a higher voter participation rate than the United States of America.
It's wild, but listen. Sometimes you just do have to go back to basics. Sometimes we can overcomplicate things, and again, I don't think it's by accident. I think it's very intentional how things have gone on in America, and especially in the leftist states, and you can see that based on results. And you see what's going on in the gubernatorial election in California, and the guy that was literally leading, well, 3 weeks later, once the mail-in ballots are counted, magically he can be taken out. And same, they're doing that. They did it to Spencer Pratt for the LA mayor's office. He's number 2 in there, and all of a sudden, all of the mail-in ballots go to the second place Democrat who was running in 3rd overall, but not to the Democrat who actually got the majority of the votes, but to the other one, just to make sure that we just have 2 Democrats in this final race, just in case things get crazy and they have a harder time rigging the actual general election.
No, absolutely. Like I mentioned, 1 hour, Don, 1 hour after getting the polls closed, they have a result. And look, if you look at the 2 things we talked about, this idea of USAID, taxpayer-funded movement to bring socialism to our front door. So that's an attack from outside. Then an attack from within to deteriorate our ability to actually elect the people that the people want elected by deteriorating and creating voter fraud. This is a pretty evil plot to destroy the United States of America, an attack from outside, an attack from within, and then they accuse us of being anti-democratic. I mean, this is serious stuff. This is why President Trump has been talking about this over and over again, because he understands instinctively that to save America, we have to fight both of those things back in a big way. And I think when we as Republicans unite and talk about this the right way and not stop talking about it, not be scared about talking about it, plow through the conversation and say, look, it's insulting to me. You think that I can't get my birth certificate? I can't find a voter ID. This is because I happen to be of Latino heritage. Well, here's a country that's 100% Latino that has no problem. So I think we just got to pound that and make sure that it's reported on.
Well, speaking of Colombia, I guess, for decades, the Colombia-Venezuela narco pipeline has really had direct consequences to our border. Fentanyl traffic, obviously the death associated therewith, cocaine, money laundering, and obviously migration. Now things look much different. Where do you see things going from here? In Colombia, in Latin America, on the things that you're dealing with as it relates to Venezuela, et cetera.
I think of it as a massive neighborhood cleanup project. Obviously started with the incredible operation in Venezuela. So we're going to get all these bad actors out of our hemisphere. What's going to happen is we'll eliminate corruption in Latin America. President Trump has made Latin America dramatically more investable. That means that the people in those countries will have more opportunities. They won't turn to illicit activities. What does that mean for Americans? What does that mean to the people in Ohio? It means massive drop in drug trafficking that's literally killing our brothers, our sisters, our mom, dads, our friends, and dramatically lower levels of illegal migration. We want immigrants to come to the country, but they have to come on our terms. It's a privilege. It's not a right to come to America. You have to assimilate, and you have to come the legal way. But the reality is they won't need to come to America because they'll have opportunities in their own country, and we can have and protect our culture to make certain that it's there and it's stable, not like Europe, which has basically been completely destroyed and overrun by open borders and terrible policies.
It's a big deal. Senator Moreno, my father endorsed El Tigre after the first round. How much did the Trump factor matter on the ground, even in Colombia? And what did Colombians tell you about wanting a stronger relationship with the United States again?
Well, forget what they told me. They told the polls that 81% of the reason they wanted to vote for one candidate versus another was a strong relationship with the U.S. So by President Trump saying, hey, look, this is a guy that I support, that I'll work with. And by the way, it's sincere. These two guys are going to be best friends. I mean, they are absolutely cut from the same cloth. I mean, it's unbelievable. This is a guy that's strong and powerful. He's an outsider. He's very wealthy. He didn't need to do this. He wants to do it because he wants to lift up working Colombians. He wants the country to rise. He wants safety and security. Who does that sound like? And on the other side of it, he said, hey, this other guy is a socialist. He's a communist. He's not somebody we could probably work with. And that was a massive factor in why they decided to vote for the candidate that won. And so that endorsement was absolutely key and essential.
So obviously, the cartels are very powerful in Colombia. We talked about Mexico a little bit, Venezuela. Obviously he wants to take that on. How much of a threat is that to him? Is he able to pull that off, or is it, in some of these other countries, those ties, that power, the corruption runs very deep. How do you think he can actually pull that off?
Well, as you know, because this is your family's motto, you got to be all in, right?
Yeah.
So Abelardo is all in. So he could never do it himself. There's no way Colombia has the resources to go after these guys by themselves. But by engaging with the United States as a strong partner, combined with the U.S., the drug traffickers got nothing on that partnership. And so Abelardo will make certain that we wipe them out. He gets sworn in on August 7th, and I predict we'll see attacks against narco terrorists that you've never seen. Like, this is the stuff that we've been thinking about, dreaming about, hoping for decades. And look, my message, if any of your listeners happen to be narco terrorists or their friends, pack up your bags and leave the hemisphere, because your days are numbered. And by the end of August, you're either gone one way or the other, either down in the deep recesses of hell or outside the Western Hemisphere. Those are your two choices.
They're big ones. We cover Cuba a lot here on the show, Senator. What does this mean for Cuba? Do you see sort of a directional change even affecting, that regime and country?
Well, the Venezuela operation really is what decapitated Cuba. Cuba had basically conquered Venezuela. They were sucking all their resources to feed this machine of communism, socialism, social unrest, political turbulence throughout the hemisphere. Now that they have no money, they can't even have electricity on for more than an hour a day. I think they're coming down to their knees, and now they have no safe haven in the hemisphere. It's basically down to Cuba and Nicaragua as the two bad actors. And quite frankly, look, Mexico and Brazil have got to get their act together. Probably Mexico the worst. I know the president has a great relationship with Sheinbaum, but Mexico is not a good partner to the United States. They need to step it up in a big way. And I think what's going to happen is they're going to see what Colombia is willing to do and the effectiveness of those operations. And I think it's going to shame them into doing something that they should have been doing a long time ago.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a big one. Mexico, obviously being the number one, we share a very long border with them. And I don't remember what the stat was, but I remember seeing it last time around. It was like 33 of the 35 people who ran for president in Colombia were basically killed by the cartels. And so I imagine, it's not so easy to go up against them. You have to have some, pretty serious cojones and resolve. But it can be done. You just need to actually do it. Is that one much harder than Colombia, or are they kind of similar? And again, we're just missing the resolve component.
No, I think in Colombia, we got it done. We got the right leader that's got the right attitude, that's going to partner the U.S., and these guys are toast in Colombia. There's no doubt in my mind about that. And Mexico, look, at the end of the day, there's a lot of government officials and narco terrorists that are basically two sides of the same coin. I mean, this is how deeply integrated they were, and you need a commitment to go in there and take care of business. Part of obviously the leverage we have is trade. President Trump has used that to really strong effect, and I think he should continue to do that. There's a lot of other countries in Latin America, the ones that are part of this new coalition, that can be an option for American companies. We don't have to have our American companies decouple from China and go to Mexico. They can go to Honduras, they can go to El Salvador, they can go to Colombia, they can go to Ecuador. And I think having that competition for American investment, American resources is ultimately what's going to get Mexico to the table. But look, ultimately, at the end of the day, they have to make the decision that they're going to end narco terrorism in their country. And I think their citizens want it, by the way. That's what's crazy. Their own people, they want that. They don't want to live in that world like that.
Oh, I see the stories. I hear the people, when I'm at business conferences around the world, it's just, the amount of theft, from the Mexican gas company and this, and it's basically used to, the money is stolen, but then they use it to basically buy votes to keep the, insane people in power. And it's just a cycle of corruption that is very hard to break, but it seems like everyone knows what's going on. So if you know what's going on, you can actually do something about it. Again, you just need the will.
No, absolutely. And obviously people get shaken down. You can't operate a proper business. You get people showing up to you, telling you, give me 20% of the cash that you have. And that's how they launder it. Nobody wants to live in a country like that. It's not investable. Like if you have an environment like that, no company is going to come in and say, I'm going to build $1 billion factory here to employ thousands of people, tens of thousands of people. So it's just a spiral down. Look at El Salvador. They got basically one of the safest countries in the world now from one of the most dangerous. This is not philosophically hard stuff. The only thing that makes it difficult is having the courage. And I think what President Trump's done more than anything else, to more effect in Latin America than here in the United States Capitol, by the way, is to show politicians how to have courage, how to have the guts to do what you know needs to be done. These are not new ideas. Knocking the crap out of Iran and getting them to the table is not a new idea. It's just that nobody had the courage or the spine to do it. Taking out Maduro isn't a new idea. It's just that nobody had the courage to say, we're going to go do this. They had a bunch of political people saying, well, what if this happened? What if this happened? You can't do this. You might not be able to do that. President Trump knows what needs to be done. He does it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. Listen, I know, as someone who campaigned on, not having the forever wars and everything like that, you still recognize that Iran and a nuclear weapon is a really bad threat. We've been talking about, that threat for 47 years, literally, basically my entire life. And yet here we are. We took out their infrastructure. They're not going to have a bomb. We're going to open up the straits. It was a couple of weeks of pain. And I get that. That's not ideal. But sometimes you actually have to do what's right. And in the long term, that ends up being really important. And I think there's a difference between playing that long game and sort of doing the perpetual, election cycle game where we got to keep making bad decisions to win an election. But, eventually someone gets stuck holding that bag.
Well, and again, you have to have the courage to use kinetic warfare when you need to, but you also have the courage to end a war. And I think that's the biggest conversation that's missing here in the Capitol, where President Trump's getting criticism. He's the one that has the courage to say, look, we're going to end this thing. We're going to end it on America's terms. We're not going to go into an endless conflict. I mean, this is all very new to how American politics works. And it only happened because you had somebody that wasn't a product of Washington, D.C., like President Trump making these decisions. And look who's the strongest advocate of that position? J.D. Vance, somebody who's also not a product of Washington, D.C. So that new thinking is what's absolutely critical and missing here, Don.
Yeah, watching, so much of it's bots. I mean, you see that, but, sort of the attacks on J.D. Vance this week, by, the neocons, the bot farms, the people who want the forever wars are kind of amazing because it's like, well, J.D. Vance is going out. I'm like, I don't know, man. I was with my father last weekend for his birthday. I was with my father this weekend, for Father's Day. I've been around the room. It seems like, J.D. Vance is just doing what my father wants him to actually do. They won't attack my father because they're worried that opens them up to the stuff. So they try to go after J.D. All the fake nonsense. You saw the thing, I guess it was, the PM of Qatar who's helped, moderating these debates. They're like, he snubbed him yesterday. It was like, no, dude, they were in the room for like 12 hours prior to like the television thing. They didn't have to give another high five. They've literally been in a room together like all day long. And they run with it. Like, look at the disrespect to the United States. Like, there's no disrespect. They're like, they're getting along well. They're getting things done. They're doing a deal. Like, what's more MAGA than dropping oil prices, making sure Iran doesn't have a bomb, opening up the straits, opening up trade, like pretty MAGA to me. And yet, the bots and the other groups, really, they'd love to see a forever war.
They would. And what's interesting is two things. Number one, they have no alternative. What you'll hear is finish the job, to which I say, please be extraordinarily specific and define what you mean by that. Be specific. Like when you say finish it, do you mean annihilate 95 million people? I mean, what does that mean?
Well, no, some of these guys are out there. Some of them former generals, again, neocon, they're on someone's payroll. But like, I mean, they're on the record saying, we should just drop nuclear weapons. It's like, really? You're going to kill 90 million people? Like, I don't know, man. That doesn't seem, that doesn't seem anything first. That seems like, honestly, that seems like stupid first. The only thing that is stupid first.
Well, and then the other piece of
But
it
they'll
is
say
this won't work. This won't work. Think of your business career. If you listen to the people who said something won't work. Oh, if you build that building or you buy that piece of property, it won't work. These are the guys that don't know how to take shots because you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And when President Trump says, we're going to take a shot at peace, we're going to take a shot at changing the Middle East forever, not for me, but for my kids and grandkids. I hate to see these guys going, oh, but it just won't work. Okay, well, why don't you sit to the side and watch it work?
No, it's I saw it the whole time. In the first term, it was the same thing. Like, I can't believe Trump's doing this with North Korea. Like, well, what have you done with North Korea? Well, I led the delegation for 40 years. I go, no. What have you accomplished in 40 years? If you've done nothing in 40 years, if you haven't been right about anything, if you've never even been in the room with like the counterparty that makes the decision, like, shouldn't you lose your expert status at that point?
Yeah, I mean, these are I call them the chirpers, the guys that are on the side saying this won't work, that won't work. I mean, we have them in the business world too, right?
Yeah, they can point out the problems, but never a solution.
Right, exactly. And those are the guys I love to get rid of because the guys that really matter are the ones that have the courage to see things through, the perseverance, that have the toughness to make the decisions that are hard to make. But look, this is why President Trump is such a defining president of our lifetime, and it is whether it's the Middle East, of course, the hemisphere I care about here in Latin America. I mean, the things that we're doing, he's not playing for the midterms. He's playing for generational substantive change that's going to make this country better and, quite frankly, the world better. Like I said, the most popular elected official on the planet in Colombia, anywhere on the earth, is Donald J. Trump in Colombia, in Venezuela, in Honduras, in Peru, in Ecuador. That doesn't happen by accident. These people see results and they want more of it. They want prosperity. They want safety. They want security. And as elected officials, that's what you should do, is give it to them.
Well, Senator, I know you have to run, but I just got to confirm, because it sounded kind of like it's breaking news. You're going to do a California versus Colombia hearing on elections and how to actually get elections done in Congress. I mean, this is a real thing. Any idea when this is going to happen?
I'm hoping as soon as humanly possible. And we have subpoena power. So we'll bring the governor of California, have him stand. Can you imagine he sits next to a guy who runs an election of a country that has an economy smaller than Los Angeles? And this guy's going to look at him like a lunatic. And by the way, in a very thick Spanish accent, and go, "What do you mean Latinos can't find their voter ID?"
No, yeah, please explain to me. We're able to do it with a lot fewer resources, a lot less capability, a lot less tech, a lot less money, and yet here they are. So. By the way, I can't wait for that, because it's going to give me like 4 or 5 shows worth of content, because it's just going to be, it's going to be amazing. So, Senator, thank you so much. Keep doing the great work that you're doing for, not just our country, but for the people of Ohio that you represent. And I look forward to seeing you in person soon.
You got it. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Be well, buddy. Well, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. Okay, remember to like, to share, to subscribe, so you never miss an episode. Okay, it's so easy. Just hit the like button, okay? As we sign off, share this with a bunch of your friends, okay? Check us out on Apple, on Spotify. If your friends get their podcast that way, subscribe there anyway, even if you're a religious watcher here, okay? Subscribe there anyway, and then share that with your friends if they get their podcast that way, okay? Check out our sponsors down below and in the video description, okay? It takes guts to support a show like this, to fight back against the insanity, to say the things that actually need to be said. So, check them out. If, any one of those sponsors, if you have those needs, check them out. Give your money and support those who actually share your values. And as always, guys, remember to stay strong, stay informed, stay engaged, and, always stay just a little bit triggered. Thanks a lot, guys, and I'll talk to you all again very soon.